Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our opening night. I'm so excited to be able to present this wonderful work. I don't even know how to describe it actually, because it's not just a composition. It's not just the incredible piece that Gabriela wrote, but it's so much more. And welcome to our. And I am so happy to be able to be joined actually by the artists that created this incredible work for us, for you. Of course, I will start with Gabby, who has been to Cabrillo a few times, and I think everyone knows her work. Hi, Gabby, welcome. An incredibly stunning piece of music, first of all. How did you feel about the collaboration that you had?
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Cristi. And I would love to get a beer with everybody now that I've met you all. And it was, I mean, it's pandemical, right? It's just this weird, surreal time in which things are coming together without us being in the same room or having the kind of conversations that we're accustomed to having. So, you know, even when Cristi, when you asked me to write this for you, it was like 2 or maybe even 3 years ago. Time is just kind of doesn't mean anything now with the pandemic, but we didn't talk about it being about a fire or having, you know, incredible camera work or having an engineer with a major role or a choreographer or being situational to California history. It was just kind of an open-ended project, and you gave me the forces, the instrumentals, and because you've already played a really large work of mine, a big concerto for orchestra, it's really virtuoso. I know that your band can really play. So all I had was the sky's the limit, and I'll figure it out when I really start thinking about that piece. And then a few months before the deadline, when the festival came and said, you know, what would be really meaningful to us would be to address what's on every Californian's mind right now. And I think this is the first year in which we're really seeing fires happening in other parts of the states. But I think for the last few years, it's been largely seen as a West Coast phenomenon and mostly Californian. So it was almost like it was trauma that we couldn't share unless you were here. And I'm very careful about what can music do to enhance something that's so topical without it trivializing it. And if the audience has had a chance to read my program note, I went through a real exorcism at first because I was wanting to do this project. It's something that's had a big effect on my family's life, my life. I live in a fire zone and we're constantly 24/7 in fire preparation mode. We've just done so much work on our property, but I didn't know how I was going to put that into music. So this was a really difficult project for its topic, for its pandemic limitations. But then on the other side, I'm just really impressed what creativity will do, how it will come out. It will pass the limitations that we impose. Well, I'm never going to do anything remote, or there's no way, you know, I need to work with the dancer. I need to know who they are. And I think the possibilities are endless. So this has been one of the biggest learning experiences of my life. It's not my first time at the rodeo writing symphony music, but this kind of project is very, very different.
Well, I remember one of the first conversations that we had with the wonderful members of the orchestra of the Cabrillo Festival Orchestra, and when we told them what we had decided to do and that we have commissioned you to write this piece, and you know, and I said, you know, and we spoke to Gabby just to make sure that she's aware that you will be recording remotely and everything, and immediately someone from the orchestra raised their hand on Zoom and said, "Excuse me, can you please make sure that the composers are not asked to write simple music? You know, can you please make sure," because this is one of the things that we love about coming to Cabrillo, is the challenge of what we have to do, and this speaks so much of the incredible work that the musicians are accustomed to doing. Now, before I get to the unbelievable work that Svet has done to actually bring all the musicians together, I will turn it a little bit to Molly Katzman, who was the choreographer for this incredible and so moving, and I mean, I really thought when we had discussed about bringing you in to do this, my thought was, okay, it will be something that will be interesting. But I really, I also am not so privileged to work with dancers quite as much in my life as I would like. So I didn't know what to expect, but seeing the video, it literally left me speechless, because I just couldn't. It captured so much, both the what I loved the most was captured so much the little pauses or the little breaths that Gabby has in the music, and then like you kept going between real time and very slow time, and real time and very slow. This was such a beautiful marriage of the two mediums. And we have a question here from Margaret, and Margaret asks, when were the dancers filmed? And just curious, given the misty atmosphere, the videographer must look for the right day/hour. But before we get to our wonderful team from Swan Dive Media, Molly, how did you guys pick the location and when to do it? And did you scout this throughout the day, or how did you come up with that?
Thanks, Cristi. First of all, I second Gabriella's remark on us getting beers together. I think that would be great. So good being in the room with all of you. Yeah, we filmed in April, and it was definitely a collaborative effort to figure out where to film. Joel, Michael, and myself did some scouting, and we reached out to community if anyone was willing to let us use their space, their land that had been burned. And so we reached out to folks and had help from the festival as well. And we also got in touch with the state parks and got permission from them to scout state park land. And it was like, I don't know, Michael and Joel, was probably like 4 or 5 times that we went out together scouting different locations. Yeah. And when we got to Last Chance, which is where you saw us in the first place, and also the last place that we were in, oh my gosh, we knew right away that we wanted to film there. And just, went out together and talked about it and physically moved through the space, and we're like, this is the spot. So yeah, it was definitely collaborative, reaching out to community and then scouting together.
And speaking of the collaboration, how did the Eileen is asking, how did the collaboration between the music and the dance, how did this work?
Well, I got pieces of the music. It was interesting because we needed to film by a certain point, and the music was also being created at that same point that I was creating. It was like both Gabriella and I were like not together, which I wish that we had been more together, but we were just like on our own creating. And then I got some of the music, which was like, oh my gosh, incredible, Gabriella, amazing. And I mean, I do sometimes choreograph to music and sometimes I don't. So before I had the music, what I would do is I would read some poems, I would read about wildfires, I would read about climate change, I would go to text as inspiration and as entry points into movement and things that were made me feel something and also helped me connect to the land and what's happening. And so I started doing that. And then when I got the music, I kind of would count out the music and figure out what sections would work well in what part of the music. And it was, I listened to it over and over and over and over again, because when you're also doing film, you're thinking about, okay, not only what part of the music and what choreography am I doing, but where are we doing it? And where, like, what's the angle? Are we close up? There was just so many different things to think about. But yeah.
Beautiful. So speaking of someone that has listened to this over and over and over, I'm going to bring in Svet. And Svet, of course, most of you know Svet as the unbelievable genius percussion player that is part of the Cabrillo Festival Orchestra. But in this past year and a bit, Svet has graciously helped us to be able to put together a lot of these videos and a lot of this music. And he has had perhaps one of the most important roles in making this happen, because he creates the orchestra. He gathers, well, I'll let you say exactly what was your part, Svet.
Oh, I think it's always, my part is part of a team. I find that there's so many people who make this possible. And what is beautiful is when you feel that everybody is on the same page as you. And that's exactly the case here. So the process is different for every piece. If generally we have to define it, it revolves around creating a click track that is sent to the musicians, and which they then record to both audio and video with very specific instructions. For example, what pitch to tune to, what to expect on the click track. Sometimes there are details we give them in notes so they can mark that in their scores. And when the musicians record to that click track, they send both their video and audio to me. And we start working, basically, I start working in creating basically, first of all, orchestral sections, if you will. So for example, the violins will be put into different groups and sections, and that would go for the violas, cello, basses, woodwinds, brass, percussion, piano, harp. And we will then little by little sort of discuss with the composers what are they looking for specifically, try to layer the orchestra as best as we can, make it sound as natural as possible, and literally try to give justice to the music, to make it feel and sound as close to possible as what would be like if you are to come and experience it in person. So that varies from piece to piece. For example, with Gabriela's piece, I found it to be very particular what we had to do. And so the process for every piece is very unique in that sense. Just like maybe it's writing a piece of music. It's not always the same thing, I would imagine. And so recording it isn't either. So finding what serves the music best is basically what the process becomes. But the general idea is what I mentioned.
I also want to mention the fact that, we didn't make it easy on Svet. So we didn't say, okay, well, we will take this one violin or one person that is playing the violin part, and then we're just going to multiply it, 7 or 10 times. No, we actually had multiple. Every member of the orchestra recorded their own track, because it could have been pretty simple to say, in the strings we're going to get 5 tracks, and then we're going to manipulate the sound and make it sound like it's a full orchestra. But we didn't. We made it quite difficult on Svet. Sorry about that. But but I think the end result really is worth the incredible effort that you have put into it. Molly, can I come back to you to ask this, and then maybe Joel and Michael, you can chime in as well about this, because I think the choreography, as you said already, is not there's that extra element that you usually have in a traditional setting on stage. You always know where the audience is, but when you have the camera, you can actually manipulate where the audience is, because the camera is so much more flexible to be able to turn around the set rather than have a set that needs to be turning around. So there's a question here that we have from Eileen, and she asks, how do you choreograph with geography? Because obviously the set is quite large, and you have to pick this one spot, you have to create the framing for it, you have to do all those things. How do you come up, or how did you come up with those things? Molly, I'll ask you first, and then Joel and Michael, you can chime in as well, please.
Yeah, it felt really important when we did our scouting, for me, at least as the choreographer, to be like, okay, I can imagine this idea or this feeling or this movement that I already have fitting here. Or sometimes it would give me an idea. Like, for example, in that first site that we were in, there was that trail that all of us are moving down, weaving through each other. And I just had an image of that to a specific part of Gabriela's music that to me just felt so like heart-wrenching, and this I don't, just like really full and had a lot of feeling in it. So I had that image. It's interesting how like the music and then my feeling of what Gabriella was feeling, the site itself kind of all weaves together for me to have this sort of vision. So yeah, it was very much about the site. And I remember like, I felt like at a certain point, I couldn't continue to move forward until I knew where we were going to film, because it was so much about the land. And I really, really wanted to connect to the land and be in relationship to it and have it make sense. I mean, site-specific work is really about bringing that place alive. And you can't do it anywhere else. It just exists in that space. So the geography was very much a part of how I would choreograph and how I would envision what to do.
Okay, and Joel or Michael, our wonderful partners from Swan Dive Media, who have created the actual video, and so how did it feel for you to have to find just the right angle or to find the right, because my guess is that you didn't have unlimited amounts of time to just, okay, we're going to shoot these from 18 different angles and then we're going to look in post-production what works best, right?
Right. Absolutely. So we had a lot of choices between the angles to shoot from, especially that opening scene where you can kind of see some close-ups of the feet moving through the space, stepping on the log, to the Molly's hand, on the tree, and then to the wide open drone shots sweeping to kind of give you that really big open view of the land. That's more that shot's more focused on the land and not the dancers. So and those wide open areas of that first scene, we had a lot to work with as far as angles, and then bringing it into that long stretch where Molly was just touching on this, where they were moving through each other. It's that long pathway in the opening scene. And that was a really nice angle, just front and center to capture them and also allow them to dance through that space and keep a really long take so the viewer can just really see that, really pay attention to the dancers' movements and not be distracted by a cut. And so there's quite a bit of opportunity for angles, and it was an interesting place definitely to film in and do that.
Joel, do you want to add something? Maybe if you turn on your mic, we might be able to hear you better as well.
What I was saying was what Molly was talking about, the fact that in so many ways we were beholden to the environment, and that the ultimate mission around this production was to really allow the space that was impacted so heavily by the fires to really have a voice. And I think that there was sort of this waterfalling down of responsibility to make this story come to life. And I think it started with the music. Molly and her choreography and her team of dancers were interpreting the music. And here we are as filmmakers having to watch and listen and see and observe the land and get a sense for how to let all of that come to life through our visuals. So there was these tiers of interpretation that were having to take place. And, that required a lot of communication and a lot of trial and error and planning. And I think the ultimate goal, right, was to kind of cohesively integrate everything that each of us were doing and ultimately let that land be the star of the show. And I think that the dancers and the music were that conduit. And we were just trying to make sure that we were able to sync up and do that justice as filmmakers.
Beautiful. That's such a wonderful description of actually what it is that we create in this space, right? That it's given to us and that we belong to, actually, because we are all creatures that belong to this space, And I think the pain that we feel seeing something being destroyed in this way or being affected in this way is actually something that you see about your own home, and I'm hoping that everyone sees this as a tribute that we have created for the difficulties that the land itself goes through, in this process. Can I ask a little bit about the post production? So you created the music, Gabby, then Molly, you created the dance. You created the video. How did you put everything together? Because there are so many moments in the dance that I really loved, where there's a little gesture that happens exactly on the right chord, where there are things that change, which is one of the most difficult things to do in a live performance between, an orchestra and dancers, and choreography, to have these aha moments, where a simple touch, on the right chord, it gives it such a different meaning. Molly, did you work with the team to decide those moments, or how did this happen?
Originally, it was me listening to the music, putting movement to the music, and like you said, when there's a certain chord, we can hear it in a different way if there's movement to it. Like sometimes it's a louder chord, or sometimes we hear a part of the music that maybe we wouldn't have heard if there wasn't movement to it. So I really love that relationship between movement and music. I think it can add complexity, and it can also reveal things that maybe you wouldn't have heard or seen otherwise. But yeah, it started with me really like thinking about that and listening to it and putting movement to the music. And then, we would bring a speaker to the filming site and play the music, so that we would try and make sure that we would be on time with the music when it was overlaid over the film. And then Michael and Joel did a really, really good job of editing that together, so that like my vision and Gabriela's music really cohesively worked together.
And I remember there was some freestyle elements of the dancing as well, that was just kind of let open to how to put together the film in post-production, and to kind of pick and choose what parts of those movements hit at what parts of the song. So there's those two different styles of, filming while you have a playback of the song, and that was pretty easy to line up with post-production and editing, and then also leaving it open to interpretation of how to take the freestyle dancing elements and line those up to the song in post-production too, which was really fun and challenging at times. But yeah, I love how it turned out, and great job, Molly, on everything that you did.
Thank you.
So we have one a couple of questions actually. I will go with the first one from Janet, and the question is, how was it for Svet watching the film, seeing the nature and the dance?
So a little secret is that I was not able to see the film until today. And the reason for that is because I think I was making sure that I can provide as quickly as possible an audio, which was not final. It's called a rough mix, but to provide that to the dancers, Molly and her team, basically, to be able to then share with Joe and Michael, and to have something more realistic to work with, because that definitely affects also how an artist would respond. But afterwards, basically, I think they have been working on this for a while until recently. And the first time I saw anything actually was when the trailer for Cabrillo Festival's season came out, and I saw the couple beautiful shots you had, beautiful in a very daunting way, of the site, and I just got goosebumps. I mean, I have been listening to this piece a lot. I did not mind one bit, and in fact, I keep getting goosebumps all the time. And I've told so many of my friends, I said, I feel like I'm this emotional, danger to my own self, because I'm so overwhelmed hearing this. And seeing the site, in that trailer, just kind of completed what I had not experienced yet, even partially, but in very powerful way. And I literally saw this now for the first time completely in its entirety, and I was just stunned with it's sort of it has this very subtle just magnitude to it, that it's always there, but it gives you space to experience it. And I have to watch it again. It's one of those amazing books or movies that you have to experience a couple times. So for me, that is what I want to do. And I really hope more people do that, because I think it would really have even more sort of dimension to the impact on us. And I look forward to doing that as soon as possible.
Yeah, I agree with Svet 100% that for me as well, watching it several times, the video, every time I had expectations of things to see that I was sure were going to happen next, and then I was always surprised that they didn't happen when I had remembered that they were going to happen, and it's amazing how that starts to actually create this beautiful conversation, because even though it's a piece that then what you expect to happen there, it doesn't at that time. Somehow, you are confused, or I don't know. Like every time that I watched it, there was something new to it that was really really, really beautiful. So a question, Gabby, I'll come back to you, because we have a question from Anne. I guess I'm assuming this is more for the festival, but I want to turn this around and ask you. And the question is, this collaboration was brilliant. Will you do more work like this?
No, I am 95% a concert composer, which is why this was such a mystery to me, how this was going to work. I've had a few opportunities to work with dancers, but I'm always the one that's just, it's like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka is this factory that nobody ever can go inside. It's just these things that come out. And so that's what it's like. I send out my music and then dancers do something, and then I show up and I see, what they've done. I did have an experience more recently where I was able to work more closely with the dancer, and we just had that largesse of time and whatever. And it was wonderful. Actually, it reminds me of what it's like when I work with a writer. We're kind of talking about a chain, right? The music, and then we had, there's somebody in between the music and Molly, which was, we had a Midi Realization. So I had one of the composers, one of my students, make up a mock-up. So you were listening to that, and then you heard Svet's work, and then the visuals come in, where we have our Swan Dive team come in. But if you have a writer, they're at the beginning, they're before the composer. If they're building the text with you, then you can do things like share images, or I can just mock up some sounds and say, this could be a really big climactic moment. Can you come up with a sentence? What would be worthy of this? So I could try to come up, with things. So when you have that kind of back and forth, it's a bit like extemporizing before you're performing. You're extemporizing in the creative process, and you can't be afraid to throw away a lot of things, or save it. Maybe it's homeless until the next project comes along and you can use that idea, or you haven't really investigated the idea long enough to get the best of it. Yeah, you could put it in the piece now, but you always feel a little bit, I didn't get the best out of it. So because I was very solitary, and I was really, I didn't visit this site, for instance. I didn't do that with Molly, and although my brother went to UC Santa Cruz, I really feel like, I have a lot of fondness for the area. I was really going back on my own experiences living in a fire zone since 2017, and seeing how my neighbors and I are jittery, and all the work we're doing to chop down trees and do prescribed fire. And I have to say that when I got a draft of the video a month ago, whenever it was, because it hadn't been that long since I submitted the piece, and it was a trying experience for me to choose to go back to the fear that I feel with the fire. I actually turned off the sound, and I watched the whole thing in silence. And I just wanted to experience it that way and not get distracted. Because I can get very technical when it's my own work, like, I should have done 2 clarinets, not 3. Or, that needs to be a 4/4. I'm ready for, I missed it, damn. And you're very technical about it. And I just needed to give myself over to somebody else's contribution to this project. So that's what it's like to work with a dancer or to work with a writer, if you have that ability to create together. Otherwise, it's passing the baton and praying. And in this case, you know, I think because we're also invested in the topical subject matter, it means so much that we were able to find, even disconnected, we were able to meet in the same place.
Yeah, beautifully said, Gabby. And from our point of view, so from the festival's point of view, for me, it was always important to find and create art that really connects us, and as you said, speaks about something that, even though we are apart right now, it has brought us together. It has unified our thought. And this was always something that was very important, and this will continue, as well as collaborating with different mediums. You know, I think Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music, from its name and in its DNA, of course, focuses on music. This is what we do. This is who we are. But at the same time, I always enjoy, and I think we have so much to benefit from the marriage with other art forms as well, like dance, like videography, and I think it's important for us to find ways that we can collaborate together. Hannah has a question that it's a small technical question, but I will answer right away. It says, will audiences be able to watch this again? Yes, the videos will remain on the website of the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music. Please go back, watch it as many times as you wish, send it to your friends, share it on social media. We love that. We welcome that. So that other people can get to benefit from watching this beautiful piece of work. So, Svet, tell me just a little bit. You know, you received each individual video, right, and link or soundbite from the musicians, and then you put everything together. Do you feel right now like you know the orchestra on a much more intimate level than you have ever before, having been part of it, having heard everyone's sound individually, like one-on-one? How does that feel?
There is a lot of topic of conversation I can have with all of them right now. You know, jokes aside, I feel that, yes, I think that it's been very personal, because I've also have been in touch with a lot of people directly by email. A lot of them have been in touch with me by phone, by email, talking about what's the optimal way to do this. Because ironically, when we're home, we're not actually as comfortable as sometimes we think we are. You know, that brings a whole new set of challenges when you're trying to do something like what we were doing here. And so people had their own questions and dilemmas of how can I do this as best as possible? So we were in touch all the time. And honestly, I feel that, you know, I was really fortunate to get to spend that time with them, because I felt more connected with them. And in fact, sometimes I felt like that helped me figure out also what sounds they really liked, you know, understanding how they really want to sound, because this is all about, you know, serving, you know, the music and the art of music. And so it was really enlightening and illuminating in ways much unexpected by me, and very deeply, you know, I'm grateful for those ways now.
So do you feel like when we'll be back live with the full orchestra, do you feel like you are going to hear the orchestra differently now that you know, like really, really well, you know, like, are you going to be able to say, okay, I recognize that was this person's sound and this was that? And what do you think?
I definitely feel like there's a lot of beers we're going to have with different people who have literally said that in the couple next festivals, all my, you know, outings are on them. No, jokes aside, I really feel that it's become beautiful to figure out what are the priorities of different instrumentalists. You know, when you talk to a woodwind player, what are they hoping to accomplish versus a string player, and how does that connect together? So yes, I feel like, in fact, some people in the orchestra had very particular ways of phrasing and of thinking about sound as well, and sound production. So I feel that actually I do think I would recognize some of them very particularly so. But that's what makes it so special also, to be able to put an orchestra together like this, is actually what you talked about earlier. The color of an orchestra would be so different if you had, a clone of the same person, versus having all these beautiful people who come from different experiences and who just sort of contribute their own sound, their own flavor to this. And that was just beautiful to experience. In fact, when you design the sections in the orchestra, it's literally like sound painting, and you have to figure out, okay, is this section sounding too bright? Is this sounding too dark? All these things come to play, and thinking about these individual sounds and how would they really come together in a natural sonic environment was really helpful to me.
Very, very cool. We have a comment here, and it says, my sense was like being at a cemetery in mourning. Then my eye gloomed on the bits of green that were emerging in the trees, offering a modicum of hope. And I noticed this as well. This was something that was really beautiful. Like when the picture started pulling back slightly, and we started seeing actually the shot from the ground up of the, and we started seeing the green grass, and then you see it in the trees, and at the very end. Gabby, did you imagine an idea of catharsis or hope through the piece of this? Or was it something that surprised you in the video? I'm curious.
Well, I'm familiar with that baby green growth. I mean, we see it here year after year. We have about 20 acres of land with mostly redwoods and madrones, and we've been trying to protect our trees and cut down the dead ones. And after a really dry season, we even prescribed fire burns, you'll see this green coming through. And so the earth is insistent. And if we just liberate it, from our expectations that are harmful, it's showing us what it can do. And I think I had a mix of both hope and resolve. I mean, it's going to take a lot of resolve. And I think for us to get through the climate crisis, and people seem to vacillate between alarm and aspiration. And I think the middle ground is just resolve. And that's what's going to take us through, which is changing our lifestyles and making the hard calls, but then realizing that there's a lot that can be done remotely and Zoom for now. And there's maybe we can celebrate more of the local communities that we're in. I mean, it's daunting in many ways. And I think hope is what we have, and resolve is what we have. And I choose not to despair, even if I'm afraid. I choose not to.
Beautiful. Let's switch slightly to a technical question we have from Mark Kello about filmmakers, and the question is: did the filmmakers utilize drones for the photography, or how did you get, especially that final shot at the very end? It's so beautiful. How did you guys do that?
Yeah, we used the DJI Inspire 2 drone for the intro scene and the last section of the video as well. And that last shot, I think he's referring to is the mother tree. They call it the mother tree at Last Chance. And so I really wanted to highlight that tree and then pull back so you could see all of the trees in the landscape in the same shot without cutting. And so I did that with speed ramping using the drone, and then speed ramping in post-production. So there's definitely a lot of drone elements. And I think, cutting back to the drone shots in this video is very important, because it's a really great opportunity to see a very wide shot of the landscape from an aerial perspective. And there's no perspective like that to really grasp the devastation that these fires has caused. And then also the regrowth that is happening. If you could tell by that last drone shot in the last scene of the last clip of the video, you could see all the green growth growing. And when it pulls back, you can see little green spots throughout the whole shot. And so the only way to get that and to show that was with a drone. So we're very happy to have that as part of our equipment list for the shoot.
Yeah, and it's such an amazing thing with nature, because not only did it capture in sound, Gabby, you captured in sound what you wanted to say, but also that moment in time where this was done in April, Molly, that will never be the same. You know, that's what's amazing about it, that you capture this image and you capture this feeling associated with that image. And I bet you anything that if you go to make the video again in the same place, it'll be a completely different video. It will actually, I think it will even bring a different kind of meaning to the music itself, you know, because the experience behind the collaboration is completely changed, you know, and all of this is affected by what is that we have in as the setup, I guess, or as the stage for what we do, which is so beautiful for me. I oftentimes refer to my very first trip ever, experiencing being next to a redwood tree, you know, and I remember that feeling, which for me it was so poignant, that very first opening shot with the hand on the tree, because I remember touching a redwood tree for the first time in my life, and there was a spiritual awakening for me. It was a really deeply emotional feeling that I think all of us have it. You can't really describe it in words, but I think we all do, because there's a moment of awe and respect and understanding of something that is so much greater than us. But at the same time, it's so much gentler than us. You know, I don't know how to describe it, and so that was very beautiful. It captured me immediately from the beginning, this touch, you know, of the tree. Well, I think this the work that you've done, it's so remarkable for all of you, and it's an amazing thing because it's so interconnected. You know, without the music, the dance would not have the same inspiration. But then at the same time, without someone to capture this on film, or to be able to mix the sound together, you know, would also not be able to be received by the audience that it was intended. So it's such a beautiful representation of what beauty we can create in the world when we set our minds to have to do that. So I want to thank you all really deeply from the bottom of my heart for doing this, for being open to this collaboration, and for working so hard to achieve this for us. Thank you again. Thank you, Gabby, for writing this beautiful music. Thank you, Molly, for creating the beautiful choreography, Joel and Michael for capturing it, Svet for creating the most beautiful sound. And of course, we look forward to seeing all of our audience members tomorrow when we continue in our next chapter. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone.